Hello and welcome to this webcast on saving money through fleet risk management. This webcast is brought to you by Brake Professional and has been sponsored by BT Fleet. During this webcast, we're going to hear from Steve Palmer at Aviva, who's going to talk through a practical approach to saving money through fleet risk management. I will now hand you over to Steve. Thank you, Steve.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I better give you a quick background of or introduction to my background. My career has spanned 37 years in the motor industry, 14 years as a fleet manager of a large company before I started to work for Aviva. My job really, and that of my fleet risk colleagues, is to try and identify any areas of risk in the business in relation to our policyholders, and to try and come up with some risk initiatives to help reduce claims volatility. That will then manifest itself in increased health and safety and welfare of the staff, the drivers, of third parties affected by their actions, and also by reducing bottom line costs for the business. In terms of risk management, what we're going to talk about today is 4 of the main areas of a document called the 10 Essential Elements. There's 10 essential elements you'll find on the Brake Pro website later on if you want to look at it. But we're going to concentrate on 4 main areas: management policy, driver safety, vehicle safety, and journey planning. Bearing in mind there that accidents, or I should say crashes, as Brake refers to them, on the motor fleet industry in the UK accounts for more than £2.7 billion worth of cost to businesses across the UK. It's therefore imperative for businesses, both from a moral, legal and a financial viewpoint, that they invest in good fleet risk management. And the basics are therefore, first one, management policy. The first thing you need to do is to make sure it's imperative that you get a good health and safety culture within your business, from the boardroom down to the drivers. You must get the board's buy-in, and we'll talk about that later on in this presentation. The second thing is to carry out driving at work risk assessments. You need to devise your risk reduction methods and implement them. You do this by extending your health and safety policy to include driving activities. Most companies that I go out to see have basic risk assessments in place, but they're for general workplace areas and don't necessarily extend to vehicles, which are covered under this legislation. You need to demonstrate that your commitment by using a driving at work policy. That's a policy that provides a framework for managing and reducing your road risks. The typical driving at work risk assessments could include things like working at height, driver fatigue, driver breaks, reversing procedures, loading and unloading, access and egress, particularly from commercial vehicles, although getting out of the sides of cars at the side of the road with traffic coming past is another consideration, particularly for things like chauffeur drive, etc. Roadside working, spatial awareness. One of the biggest problems that we have is hitting third parties in the rear, not having sufficient space between the car in front of you. Low speed manoeuvring, etc., etc. So what you need to do to actually do this is engage with employees, with drivers, with your trade unions, also your customers and others affected by your driving activities to obtain buy-in. You need to include a statement about your company's commitment to road safety and how you intend to control and review it going forward. You need to also explain how you intend to manage driving at work activities, including drivers, vehicles and journeys, and keep it simple. Keep it very simple. Put that in the driver's handbook and include it as part of any toolbox talks or any emails that you might send out to your company car drivers. Implement and monitor regularly. You need to maybe get this reported at board level as part of the board's KPIs or as part of the business plans. This needs to have, as I said before, the buy-in of the management. Amend plans as things change in the business. So if you've got different journeys, different operating centres, different types of vehicles, maybe foreign drivers included for the first time. Include also your motor claim stats. One of the biggest pointers in terms of where your accidents are coming from and where your risks are is to look at your motor claims, your previous motor claims for the last 3 to 5 years, to see what type of accidents you're having. Investigate those and analyse those regularly to identify your trends, your types of claims, and the depots or areas in your business that are actually having those year on year. Keep drivers advised of all claims costs as well. A real great idea is to publicise your accident costs or your crash costs in terms of your claims to your staff, and make sure there are consequences for everybody knowing those. As I mentioned earlier on there, one of the big problems you will have is changing the culture within the business. You do that by starting with the senior management in the business, and you have to equate the benefits of risk management into pound notes. You have to highlight the true cost of crashes and lost productivity in your business. This is normally between 33 and 4 times the bent metal costs. An average bent metal cost on a vehicle is around about £1,500. So you can see there's a massive increase when you factor in things like car hire costs, lost productivity, etc., etc. You need to cite your own claims, your year on year, and use the formula that we've just used there. Even if you said 4 times the cost of your claims would be a much more realistic figure to banter about in the boardroom. Legal compliance, it's the law for you to operate safely. And as a commercial vehicle operator of any description, whether it be a car, van or a truck, you are required to operate safely. Moral reasons, to show your staff that you actually care. It's a great tool to use, particularly when you have a 60,000 driver shortage of commercial vehicle drivers in the UK, to be able to demonstrate to your staff that you actually care about them. Corporate and social responsibility. Publicity orders, they're not good for business. If you have a serious road accident and it's down to your shortfalls or misgivings within the company operating vehicles dangerously, then there are potentially the opportunities for judges to actually publicise or require you to publicise your shortfalls and your shortcomings to the press, in the national press. That's not good for business. And the last thing that you need to be thinking about when you're looking at driving at work risk assessment is self-preservation. If you are involved with an unsafe activity, you could be held accountable alongside the directors of the company. Okay, looking at driver safety as our next area of the essential elements. 95% of all crashes are down to driver error. That's a fact. It's imperative that the drivers know what their individual responsibilities are and why they should drive safely. You should have a driver's handbook, and it should be the cornerstone of a good driving at work policy. This needs to be issued and explained to all drivers at an induction point before they start driving and signed for prior to driving commencing. You have to ensure that they are fully conversant with what their responsibilities as drivers are and what you expect as a customer, as a company. Sorry. Handbook needs to be kept in the driver's vehicle at all times. It's no good being taken home and left at home. It'll never be read again. If the driver has an accident or he has a breakdown, he needs somewhere to refer when the business is closed for the business. It's best placed in the glove box. New employees also need to go through driver vetting assessment and induction. Specifically, you need to have a driver's application form. Generally speaking, when I go out there, I find that lots of companies take drivers on for other reasons other than driving. It's a secondary function. Say, for instance, a plumber or an accountant will be given a company car and expected to drive 30 or 40,000 miles a year, but the application form asks them specific questions about their competence to do that main job. You need to be looking into driver's histories, medical issues that they may or may not have disclosed to you previously, license categories, what they're licensed to carry, to drive, etc. License checks by a competent person. Recently, the DVLA has changed the process of license checking from June this year. There is a View My License system now, which is available to the driver, and there's also the Share My License, where they give you a code which you can log on to. You need to be looking at these before any driving is commenced. This also needs to include partners and maybe spouse or partners of company cars, as they will be allowed to drive, generally speaking. Also grey fleets, the term being used for people who use their own car on private business. These should be no different or treated no differently to a company car driver. Eyesight testing. Again, one of the major problems that we hear of incidents is that 24% of drivers who get their eyes tested actually have substandard eyesight. This needs to be checked and can be easily checked with a number plate check 20.5 meters from the vehicle, again before commencing of driving. Brake has a document, driving assessment and monitoring, which will be useful at this stage. Okay. Next one is vehicle safety. You need to ensure when you're buying a vehicle that it's suitable and sufficient for the purposes that you're going to put it to. Vehicle specification is a critical element of road safety. Vans and large goods vehicles should be fit for purpose, have load restraint systems, steel bulkheads, retaining straps, and training to use these training straps, maybe even speed limiters. Cars, ergonomics is a major factor, particularly for company car drivers when they're driving long distances. In terms of load security, you need to know what they're carrying. Generally speaking, in a car, it's going to be personnel and a laptop maybe, but it could also be quite heavy samples and objects in the back of the vehicle. When looking at a car, you need to also look at NCAP ratings in terms of safety, passenger and pedestrian scoring. Advanced driver assist systems, things like electronic stability control and AEB, autonomous emergency braking, lane departure systems and telematics. A lot of these things can give you instant feedback and also are passive safety features in the vehicle should he or she recognize there is a danger present. You need to be able to demonstrate to enforcement authorities that that your vehicles are roadworthy at all times. You need to be able to demonstrate to all enforcement authorities as well that your vehicles are roadworthy at all times. Planned maintenance systems, particularly trucks, they will be on weekly inspections or planned maintenance inspections. They will also carry out a daily defect report. This is something that needs to be carried out also for company cars and vans. It's amazing how many fleets I go out to see where their cars and vans are in a worse state than their commercial vehicles, and the drivers don't even know how to check tread depths. This should be done for cars and vans, preferably on a weekly or a monthly basis, but nevertheless it should be a system that you have in place, maybe extend it to an expenses reclaim, whereby if they don't complete the defect report, they don't get their expenses. Don't forget grey fleets as well in terms of health and safety at work. As I mentioned before, these should be treated no differently to company cars. You need to be carrying out suitable and sufficient checks on the maintenance of the vehicle, the driver's license, and also the roadworthiness of it. Autonomous emergency braking. This has been classed as the new seat belt. It's a massive innovation in safety and is already available in most company cars. It's also going to be extended to vans going forward. And at the moment, it's now a standard feature on all commercial vehicles in excess of 7.5 tons, registered after the 1st of November 2015. It's a technology that monitors the distances between the car in front using sensors and cameras and radars, which is a form of a radar. It can also pick up vehicles and pedestrians using algorithms built into the computer system. It detects sudden reductions in distances between those objects and provides audible and visual warnings to the drivers. If the driver does not react to these audible and visual warnings, it will automatically slow the vehicle down or stop it wherever necessary. In terms of costs and savings, over 75% of all collisions occur below 20 miles an hour, and around 1/3 of all incidents that Thatcham are aware of relate to front to rear crashes. Looking at your own claims experience, I'm sure you'll have a number of those already on your policy. The average personal injury whiplash claims around about £6,000, but if you put that into bent metal costs, it's around about £11,000 for a hit third party in rear on average. Multiply that by the 4 or 33 times of the hidden costs we talked about earlier. This is a significant cost to your claims and is a major driver of premiums. The cost of AEB ranges from £180 to around about £1,300 on average, depending on manufacturer and vehicle type. It's a fit and forget technology. It will work as a passive technology, monitoring all standards of driving and conditions of weather, etc., etc., and it will kick in as and when the driver doesn't. The benefits also as well are reductions in insurance group ratings for company cars or for cars with this technology fitted. It's around about 10% according to Thatcham, and that's reflected in the group rating structure. Standard fitment to most new large goods vehicles from the 1st of November, it's compulsory, and it's now been reflected as part of the Euro NCAP 5-star safety ratings for cars. Should you need more information on the technology and the types of vehicles that are available with this technology, please see the Thatcham website below. The last area that we're concentrating on here today is journey planning. You need to check whether a road journey is really necessary. With the technology that we have available to us now, it's much easier to do a telecon in many cases. Obviously, if you're driving commercial vehicles, delivering parcels, etc., etc., that's impractical. You need to ensure that the necessary journeys are scheduled to a realistic time frame. That means planning in rest breaks and overnight stops as required, and also ensuring that you comply with the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations in regards to adequate rest periods, which is 11 hours. So useful sources of information on this can be found as below, and it's really worthwhile you building this into your policy. The next area is claims history. Is yours good, bad or ugly? Do you know how much crashes are costing your business? If not, you need to find out quick. How does your claims experience compare with other similar organisations? If you don't know, ask your broker. They should be able to tell you. What percentage of your claims are at fault? At fault are the ones that are causing you grief in terms of cost and premium increase. What's the cost of your at fault claims to your business? Is it under control? Are you addressing those areas? And what cost of third-party bodily injury claims to your business? If you don't know these, then you need to find out soon. If we look at emerging issues that affect your business now, fraud, as we mentioned before, is a major issue. Stage crashes and fraudulent claims costing over £1.3 billion a year, according to the ABI. 1,300 whiplash claims submitted every day in the UK, and there's around about one personal injury claim every 7.5 minutes in the UK. We are the claims capital of Europe. Whiplash adds around about £90 to every personal insurance policy in the UK, let alone fleet policies. The percentage is 78% of low-value claims in the UK. EU is only a third of that, 2/3 of that. What can you do? You need to have a post-crash procedure in place before incidents occur. This needs to be in your driver's handbook, which is in the glove box now, as we talked about earlier, that the driver can refer to. Your driver needs to report the claim as soon as possible. It's no good telling us 2 or 3 days later via your broker. Direct reporting is normally the preferred option these days, and ensure that you have all the details and get that to your insurance company as soon as possible. Photographic evidence if possible. Preserve the data and inform your insurer if you have it. Carry out post-crash debrief and investigations once the driver returns. This is not simply filling in the claim form. This is finding out why the incident occurred in the first place, identifying any trends or any future training or disciplinary needs. There must be consequences to the driver's actions if he is at fault. Telematics. If you have telematics fitted to your vehicle, which has instant FNOL, which is first notification of loss, tell your insurer you have it and maximise its use. Ensure there that telematics also is included as part of your post-accident investigations. Another emerging risk is vulnerable road users, the collective term for pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists. This is a major problem for all concerned in getting prominence at the highest levels for the wrong reasons. It's not good for anyone, operators or cyclists. Operators in London will no doubt be aware of all the initiatives that are going on, but for those not, these are being extended across the country as cycling expands in great numbers. Those such as FORS, Freight Operator Recognition Scheme, and CLOCS standards set standards for vehicle operators to fit safety items such as Class 6 front blind spot mirrors, Fresnel lenses, signage and other CCTV systems. Brake has written an excellent piece of research on this very topic for Aviva, which is available on the Brake Pro website. Overall, in regard to risk management resource, it's out there. There's loads of information on the web, and these are a number of the sites that you can gain it from. And finally, I hope this hasn't been too onerous for you, but to recap on what we've been talking about here, good risk management is good fleet risk management. It costs very little, but can save a lot, and every business should practice it from a financial, legal, and moral stance. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Steve, for that presentation. The slides and everything are available on the website where you've hopefully found this webcast. And thank you to Steve for his time and hopefully some valuable advice for you. Also, thank you to BT Fleet for sponsoring the series of webcasts. Thank you very much, and hopefully you will make use of the other resources and information that is available on the Brake website.